Well, happy 2026. We're starting another season, another year. PACA 2 is ready to go, and we're going to be on with the distance crew tonight. So we've got a lot of familiar faces and some new ones as we go through. Before we get started, I wanted to compliment and acknowledge some of our regulars here who, at the recent Coaches Association, received some honors. And so I see David, you're on here now, and David Burnett was named is it the National Junior College Coach of the Year? Is that right?
Yes, yes.
So he won that honor. And Norm Tate, who's on usually, he won the Assistant Coach of the Year, Division Three. And so, and then Katie Reese, who's hasn't been on a lot this year, but was on in the past. She was elected the secretary of the Coaches Association. She's from Adelphi. So again, some of our alumnus here or alumni people, they're making the scene. They have the big posters up there in the convention. So that was exciting to see. So congratulations to you guys. Tonight, like I say, we're going to take a little different twist here. We haven't done a whole lot of distance yet this year, only because our people were more involved with coaching at the time of cross country, and then we've had our break. And so now we're back and ready to go with the guests that I've been trying to get on for probably 6 to 8 months. And so luckily we were able to get in his schedule now, and that's Houston Franks, who is at LSU, and he is the head cross country coach there and assistant track and field coach, but for the distances. And so Al has a definite affection because he's one of Al's former athletes and mentees. So we've got the hierarchy following down the coaching tree. But Houston started out participating, running at Mississippi State back in the mid 90s. That sounds like such a short time ago, but I know it's been a while. And then started coaching at Southwest Missouri, was very successful there. Came back now to Mississippi State with Al and was again very successful there and winning different cross country coach of the year and having athletes performing very well in cross country in the distances, and now is starting or in the middle, I guess, of his seventh year at LSU. And again, kind of, we think of LSU more as a sprint hurdle school, but Houston got the group going there this year, and now they're cross country and placing very well on the national scene and in the SEC. So, Houston, thanks so much for joining us tonight.
I appreciate you having me. I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm glad you're here with that. So, tell us a little bit how you got started in track and field.
Honestly, I originally started in track and field um, at a birthday party, at a spend the night birthday party with a friend whose dad did a lot of road racing. And we got up one morning and he was going to take the kids that had stayed over at the spend the night birthday party home. And there were three of us along with his son. And we were like, no, 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 we'll just go to the race. We'll do it too. So we all jumped in this 5K and it was kind of fun. And I did a couple of them with him. And that was the summer before the seventh grade. And the high school cross country coach was a guy named Chris Coleman, who was a really high level decathlete actually at Mississippi State at once upon a time back in the 70s. Saw a couple of us running and told us, he didn't even ask us if we wanted to come out. He said, we'll see you next week at cross country practice. So I was like, well, I guess I'm going to cross country practice. So that's kind of how it started. And that
Never
was it.
looked back.
I was a soccer baseball player originally and was good at other sports probably just because I was fast. And so track kind of about 10th grade, it became just track.
There you go. Great. Well, we're glad it did, definitely. How'd you shift into the coaching then?
Honestly, so when I went to Mississippi State, I wanted to run, and I knew I wanted a degree. I mean, most of my families all had gone to college and stuff, but I really did not know what I wanted to major in. And every semester, I met with my advisor, and she would ask me what I'm interested in, and I would name two or three things and track and da 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 da. And I would take an intro to engineering or an intro to finance class and come back going, oh my God, I can't do that the rest of my life. I got to find something else. And eventually she was just like, have you thought about coaching and or teaching? And the one thing my mother, who was a public school teacher, probably just told me, you can do anything you want to, just don't be a teacher. So I decided I wanted to, originally though, as I went to college, I thought I wanted to coach high school and teach history. And then I was Al's GA for a year to finish my master's degree. And that's when I realized I wanted to stay in college, and just kind of got lucky and got a job.
But yeah, well, definitely. And having Al on the back pocket there isn't too bad either, right?
For sure.
Have
For sure.
What would you say were some of the early lessons that you learned as you shifted from athlete to coach that you maybe hadn't really thought about?
Well, I think from probably the best piece of advice I got actually came from Al as I was walking out the door in Starkville heading to Missouri was and I remember, I think about this almost daily, is when you deal with kids, always remember the person you're talking to is somebody's son or daughter. And I think that's always been really good advice. And I've got children myself now too. So I think that's number one. And number two, start very firm. You can always get easier and softer with kids, but you've got to set a really tough discipline in the beginning for sure until everybody's on board. Um, there's a lot of training lessons and things like that I've definitely kind of figured out trial and error, just like everybody else that works for you and your system. But, you know, separating, I think, especially in today's world too, you have to be able to separate the athlete as a person and an athlete. And those are two different categories at times. Sometimes they're the same category, but sometimes they're two different categories.
Definitely. I mean, that's the thing is, our sport is so unique in that it's an individual sport, but it's a team sport. And, cross country obviously is a team situation, and yet you're dealing with individuals. So, it's definitely psychology too, 101 on that one. When you went from Southwest Missouri to Mississippi State, coaching wise, now you're going from maybe, a mid-class campus to SEC. How was that transition for you?
Well, it was something I wanted for sure. I loved my time at Southwest Missouri State. Wouldn't trade that for the world. I had a great boss there too, a guy named Ron Boyce, who was sprint coach. He was awesome. Learned a ton from him. Still a dear friend. Um, I don't know that I necessarily want to go back to Southwest Missouri State. There was some things that were great. It was a different world. When I was at Southwest Missouri, I remember the first year I was there, probably about the 1st of October, I got brought into the AD's office going, "Hey, the recruiting, you've spent the recruiting budget," and I hadn't really done anything except just drive around going and doing home visits. And I remember the rest of that year, I like camping, but like most of the rest of the year, I would sleep in the back of my truck and at road, in a sleeping bag, get up the next morning, go to the truck stop, take a shower, go to the next house.
Oh,
And those kinds of I think that mentality, you know, was great. I don't know that I'd want to do that at now, but going back to Mississippi State was going home. I mean, both my whole family's really Mississippi State graduates as well. It's
okay.
going back to work for Al. I had, I knew the lay of the land, so it wasn't like I was getting into something I wasn't familiar with.
Right, right.
Um,
So your family is from Mississippi?
yeah, I'm originally from Tupelo, Mississippi, kind of northeast Mississippi.
Okay, okay, excellent. What were some surprises then when you went from Mississippi State to LSU?
I really did not go in with I guess delusions. I knew what I was getting into, and it's a different situation. The expectation is different. the goals of the program are a little different. Although Mississippi State, we were trying to place high at nationals as well, and do well at the conference meet. But it is a little bit different. The resources are different. Um, the way the program is run by Coach Shaver versus by Al is different. But I had friends that worked here. Bush Hexnader who's a good friend and for years, and he's probably the reason I'm at LSU. He was back as the strength coach here. Todd Lane, I had done a lot of academy stuff with, and for years. So I kind of knew what I was getting into. I don't really think there were a lot of surprises. It's just, every place has its challenges that you have to try to, whether it's in the challenge I have here is I don't have a lot of scholarship money in my event group. That's not, we are, but I knew coming into LSU that I am the special teams coach. I'm not the offensive coordinator. I need to, my group needs to not fumble, kick a field goal occasionally. And that was, now since then, maybe I've been asked to do a little bit more since then. But when I first got here, it was, don't fumble the ball and make the extra points.
Right, because like it's being honest, LSU has not traditionally been a distance powerhouse,
Absolutely not.
and
Absolutely not.
and so where Mississippi State has a very good history of middle distance and distance runners, so like you say, the expectations are definitely different. And so, did you develop a culture, or how are you developing a culture there?
So I think I had a couple of things. One, I had been at Mississippi State for 15 years. So most of the kids on the team at least knew who I was. So it wasn't some complete total stranger out of the blue. And there were two girls on the team that I had recruited at Mississippi State that ended up choosing LSU, but one had come for a visit, and the other was a British girl named Holly Parker, who was best friends with one of the girls that we coached at Mississippi State named Charlotte Caton Smith. So Holly spent, when we were at meets with LSU at the time, Holly spent more time in our tent than she did in her tent. And it was just kind of one of those things that when I got here, there were one person that, had come for a visit, another one that had been around us a lot, kind of vouched for me, and I think spread good feelings. Hey, this is going to be great. Um, when I got here, though, the interesting thing is I kind of coming in thought either there was no talent or there was a really bad distance running culture,
Mhm.
and or worst case scenario, maybe it was both. And honestly, when I got here, it's just there wasn't a lot of discipline and there wasn't a lot of expectation. The kids wanted to run better. They did. Um, the coach that was here before me had done a good job. He had left some really nice pieces in place. Um, I just don't think that there was a lot of discipline within the group.
Mm.
A lot of people kind of disappeared for days at a time and then kind of showed back up and skipped out on the weight room. And there just wasn't a real high level of accountability.
Mhm.
And I think one thing that I think most of my groups over the years would say that we definitely have a lot of accountability. We do things the same way a lot, and we do it the right way, or at least our way, a lot. And we don't make exceptions very often.
How does that look? How does accountability look for you there?
Well, now the last 2 years, I've probably especially on the women's side, but even somewhat the men's side, have the best team culture I've ever been around for the last 2 years. And it wasn't bad before that. And I've had good years and I've had years where I, wanted to choke people every day. But for the most part, like it's just gotten to be this half the girls on the team are almost like having assistant coaches. Like they have this expectation of each other and they're not scared to speak up to each other.
Hmm. And is this something, just second Al, is this something that just developed based on the character of the individuals, or something that you kind
I
of,
think a little bit of both. So definitely I have an assistant here named Sylvia Russell. She's awesome. She ran for me at Mississippi State, actually. So
hmm,
this was somebody that, and and she's kind of the psychology, the sports psychology guru, so to speak. And she's younger; she's 27, so she's in touch with today's world much better than I am. But she does a lot of the initial recruiting as well. She's very good at reading people. She's very good at giving, and I trust her advice as well as I think she does mine. I think we've done a really good job the last few years of saying no to some pretty good athletes that we didn't think would mesh well with us.
Interesting.
Um,
Yeah.
so that's been part of it. But then this is something that we 3 or 4 years ago, I had two girls that just were catty and they got the group real cliquish, and something we talk about almost on a weekly basis in our team meetings is if you guys like this culture, which they do, then we all have to work on it every day, keeping it this way. And we talk about things about you know qualities we all want to have. Is two of the biggest qualities for a team that you have to have, I think, is the ability to genuinely tell somebody you're sorry when you say something you shouldn't have or do something you shouldn't have done. And the second is being able to genuinely accept someone's apology without that following the word, well, I accept your apology, but no, you didn't accept that apology. So I think our group has become very good at saying they're sorry, accepting it, and kind of getting along really well. And we've been very fortunate that we've had a couple of girls come through the program that were maybe two of the best human beings on the planet. A girl named Michaela Rose and a girl named Lorena Rangel, both multi-time All-Americans and SEC champions. But they're the two most selfless people I've ever been around in any facet of my life. And that has been a huge part of it. I wish I could say it was just me, but it's maybe as much those two as it has anybody on staff.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Al, you wanted to say something?
Uh, he was being a little non-egotistical when I retired and helped him for about 3 years afterwards. But he had two individual national champions of his own. One beat the girl from Wales. And they had beaten the girl that from Nike that ate the pork, and the Portuguese girl that he had beat the great Stanford runner that was running. So he had two national championships under his belt. Plus, he, like I was, kind of a thorn in the side of Lance Harder at Arkansas by winning national SEC championships. And so it wasn't like he went to LSU that the LSU distance runners, if they weren't paying attention, didn't know how good he was.
Hmm.
So did Dennis Shaver, his boss. And of course, Boo pressed the issue, but he deserved what he got. And he has far exceeded anybody that they've ever had in that position.
Oh yeah, because definitely Dennis is not going to just bring in somebody to uh, teach them how. You've got to be established just to walk into that type of a program, very definitely. Because didn't you, like, you had two 1,500-meter champions and they flip-flop, like one year one and the other
They,
year
they won back to back.
back to
Yep,
back, yeah. And so that I thought, and that was at Mississippi State, right?
that was at Mississippi State. Yep.
Okay. Yeah. So I remember seeing that because I was like, well, that's pretty cool. Now, Michaela, you mentioned her, and of course, she's somebody that has been very noticeable recently in the NC2A world and so on. And as I was looking through here, I mean, it was amazing how they said she's run, more sub 2 minute halves than almost anybody in NC2A history.
In the NCAA, she has more sub twos than everybody else combined.
Than everybody combined. See, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that's the thing. So, now is she she's out of eligibility though.
Unfortunately, she has one little quick funny story about that. That again, the most selfless human being, and she's running with Adidas. She's still training here, but
Okay,
she
good.
she signed with Adidas over the summer, and she still had a cross country season left. And this summer, she was really to the point of like before signing, she was like, I think I kind of want to just we're going to finally make nationals this year, and I really want to come back for cross country. And I'm like, no way, this is too good an offer. We're not going to risk cross country on you need it's time.
Yeah.
And it did work out for us, and we made nationals this year. But like I knew going in, we had four pretty good ones. And after the first meet, I'm just starting to think, I'm like, oh gosh, we're one person away. Luckily, somebody kind of got a lot better and kind of stepped up and filled the void. But I was starting to maybe regret that decision about halfway through the fall.
You were like, let's see, time to get to eligibility back again real
Yeah,
quick.
because she is as much as she is a middle distance runner, she ended up being a she was three-time all region in cross country. She was very solid.
So moving ahead with her professional career, what are your goals or what are you working with her for
I
her?
mean, make this year make world indoor and try to make the ultimate championship outdoors. I mean that's the goal. I mean, is her goals are to win Olympic medals. That's her only goal.
Okay, great. Yeah, well, that'll be nice because that keeps up kind of the middle distance um, success that the men have been having and the women too, as far as on the international scene. So that part is great. As far as your coaching philosophy, and it's a lot developed by what your interests have been, your experience, and so on. Would you say it's science or intuition, or how would you describe how you've grown as a coach?
No, I mean I definitely work learn from Al and Scott too for that matter. You know, I try not to do anything without a reason. So it's definitely founded in science for sure. I'm not the greatest physiologist in the world by any stretch of the imagination, but I think everything we do is grounded in science, and there's reasoning behind it. Sometimes it's not good reasoning, but most of the time it's we're all trying to we take the approach that that everything is about getting the right adaptation at the right time of year, and how long those things take to some of those adaptations take a really long time. So it's got to be pretty well planned out the entire year. Um, and so it's definitely, is there some intuition that's involved? Sure. I mean, but I would probably say it is a scientific approach for sure, but there's certainly an artistic putting it together for sure.
Do you have any tips on how or strategies without giving away all your secrets?
Oh,
Uh,
I have I don't believe in secrets,
okay.
Sue. I mean,
Okay.
I don't believe in any secrets.
Okay. Great. Great. What have been maybe a aha moment that you've had in your coaching that was like, oh, this is what they're
So,
talking about?
my single biggest aha moment was probably in 2002, maybe 2000. I started coaching at Southwest Missouri in the fall of '99, so it would have been second year, um, where I just was making things too dense. Meaning, I think the workouts I were doing were pretty good. I go back and look at them now, and I think some of them are definitely better structured now, but they were pretty solid sessions, and I was doing the right things, but I was jamming things too much. Like for example, we might work out, we might have a hard workout on Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, long run on Sunday, rinse and repeat.
Hmm.
And now at one point I was like, I'm trying to jam this many threshold workouts and this much VO2 and this much of something else all in this time period. Well, what instead of taking, and I'm just throwing out random numbers, instead of taking 10 weeks to do all this, what if I use 13 weeks, but I do the same workload? I just put a little bit more recovery in there and don't make the cycle so dense. Um, and everybody started saying way healthier. The workouts were better. We were racing a lot better. And that was probably my one biggest aha moment is when in doubt, kind of side a little bit more on the recovery side between sessions as try to, pardon my French, but put 10 pounds of shit in a 5-pound sack.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, no, is that a LSU saying?
No, I mean that was, that's probably the first and foremost. The other thing is I think that one thing that I do pretty well is like right now between men and women, I've got 17 women and six guys. Um, so when I do schedules on Sunday for the next week, I do 23 individual schedules.
Oh,
I do not cut and paste. I mean, there's certainly some cut and paste involved,
hmm.
but there's probably no two people on the team that have the exact workout or the same schedule. I shouldn't say they definitely have the same workouts at times, but not the same schedules. Um, we may have a 24-year-old senior and 18-year-old freshman. That's not the same athlete.
Right.
Not when it comes to distance running. They conceptually may be doing the same things, but the amount of volume, the amount of the pacing, the how far they go on their recovery run, how far their long run is, things like that are all pretty individualized.
Now, have you always done it that way, or is this a
Yeah, I
you?
mean Al did it like that. I mean, I didn't have the same schedule as my teammates all the time. I mean, we had a lot of the same workouts, but so I think I learned that pretty early on that if you're going to have the best team, you need to try to have each individual be their best.
Right.
And especially at a place like LSU where I'm not going to have 14 scholarships in distance. That's not going to happen.
Hmm.
I This year I only had 3 and
Oh,
we made NCAA's, which probably one of the lower numbers at the meet, if not the lowest. But the reason we were able to do that is over the years, each person is progressed, you know, to the pace that they can progress.
yeah. Now, you say you have 17 women
I have 17 women,
and
16 on
six,
cross, and I have one girl that has just an outdoor season left.
and then 6 men
I had
or
technically I have 7 men,
7 men.
but 2 of them are 4'8" guys. One of them's really more of a 400-meter guy.
Okay.
We
Okay.
were we were hoping he was going to be an 8 guy, but he's probably a 600-meter guy if you want. He probably should transfer to the Big 12 is what he should probably
Uh,
do.
Vic, you've got a question for us. Go ahead and unmute, Vic. Vic? Well, Vic, we'll come back to you here. Yeah, if you have any questions or comments or anything, go ahead, definitely raise your hand and let us know. Matt, you've got a question?
Yeah, thanks for being here, Coach. I'm curious, when you have an athlete like Michaela, like she was pretty, I don't know, she was a pretty big name coming out of high school. Like,
Yep.
she ran 54 and 204 and 446. Like when you think about an athlete like that, how did you go about like a 4 year or maybe even longer plan of thinking about like, ooh, like what do I want to work on early in the career? Like, NCAA level, they're going to get out a lot faster. Like, did you focus more on like, okay, like let's make sure her four is up the stuff, freshman year? Like, any thoughts on like, I'm a
Yep.
high school coach, so like, like I
Yep.
deal 4 year development all the time. So any thoughts would be great.
So she's a little bit of an interesting probably example in that she was homeschooled. She was coached by her parents.
Hmm.
Both of her parents were sprinters at Auburn. Dad was the primary coach. He is a great biomechanical coach. She ran beautifully before she ever got here. I had worked really hard for working on 5 years of not messing that up. Quite honestly, Dad did a great job. She's very technically sound. I mean, have we changed a few little things? Sure, but nothing major. In the recruiting process, um, my big sell to her was if you come to LSU, we are going to have to work on your aerobic system. Because if you looked at, she did run 54, 80 something, I think, or something like that in high school and 204 high. Um, but she ran cross country, but she was like, not very good. I think legit cross country course, she was about 20 minutes. So in her 1500, she had never was not, or 1600 was, I don't remember exactly what it was, 510, 512. She never broke 5 minutes, and she had actually run it not a lot, but enough times that at 204 you should be way under 5 minutes. So kind of my sale to her was your freshman year, we have to do a lot of aerobic work, and that may mean you're not the greatest freshman 800-meter runner. Now, she ended up getting runner up at SEC's outdoors by the end, and it ran 202, and it kind of came together. But I did not let her run cross country the first year. She wanted to, but I'm like, you can't. She couldn't help us, so there was no point in even trying. Um, and she kind of told me, well, by next year, you're not gonna have a choice, and she was right. But we just worked a lot on the aerobic side of the equation, and by about middle of outdoor, she ran 202, and it kind of came together. She did not. She she was six-time SEC champion in the 800 after that. Never lost one. She got second her outdoor season, but indoor, she didn't even make the final.
Hmm.
I mean, we were having to do, but we stuck with the plan that we have to address this deficiency you have. And the crazy part was is when you could see with doing workouts, like she has a big VO2. She just had never done any of the training. She hadn't done enough volume of it to really develop it. We started off doing things like 400s and 600s, which is not ideal. I like doing thousands, but she couldn't do that. And then, but now, she does thousands and 1200s and does them great. But it was, we just were patient with it. And were we still doing fast stuff and anaerobic work? Absolutely. But we were really stacking a lot of aerobic work with her. She's still, and honestly, through that, we kind of found out that's really what makes her tick.
Interesting. Yeah, and that goes back to what you say with the individualizing, and finding out what works best for her, which might not be for anybody else on the team, actually. Vic, are you with us still? Okay. Uh,
Yes, Sue, I'm with you. That's actually my head coach is
oh,
on my profile too. So he had
oh,
a question.
okay. Well, what's his name?
Reggie Hankerson. He's one of
Reginald.
coach.
Oh, yeah, we know Reggie.
Yeah, he's one of Coach Al guys in Houston's guy. He's a Mississippi State grad.
Oh, okay. Well, if he wants to unmute and talk, now is the moment. Is he?
I'm texting him right now.
Oh, okay. Modern technology here. I didn't even
Yeah,
realize there were two of you. Stormy, why don't
yeah.
you go ahead then?
Sure. So I am coaching at Long Island University, and I have recruit this kid, really great 800-meter runner, inconsistent. Also does the mile, also can go down to the four, also high jumps.
Oh,
Um,
Okay.
yes, a very unique combination. So he's like a 6'8" high jumper, um, 150 in the 800, 49 in the four. I mean, just a big range. And so we're trying to kind of narrow it down because it's a lot to kind of trying to tap into as far as training goes. Do you have any recommendations or have you ever seen anything with that type of combination?
I've never had anybody that also high jumped and ran the 800.
Right.
That I've coached personally for sure. Honestly, I am a big believer that I think when you train properly, whatever your main event is, you should be able to step up and down one event and still be pretty good. You may not be as good, but you're pretty good. Like, so if a good 800-meter runner, I would expect them to be able to run a good 400. Certainly good enough to probably help with the 4x4. And then if you're going to be a great 800-meter runner, you're going to have the aerobic side to at least run a pretty good 1500. It may not be as good, but it's not going to be terrible.
His mile is honestly very solid. We have not run him in the 1500 yet, but I'm sure that it's 100 meters less. It's going to be the same.
And I don't know if that's something he even needs to do, but he's going to have the fitness to do it, whether he actually races it or not. You're still going to have to see that in training. Like we've got, but Michaela did run some 1500s later in her career, but in early, and we're using her as the example. We didn't race a lot of 1500s, but in practice, I knew that she could run a really good one if we needed her to. There just wasn't ever at that point there wasn't a kind of a we were usually early on we were kind of chasing the 800 times a little bit more. Once we kind of got established at that, then we did run a lot more 15s and miles. Not a lot of them, but usually at least one indoor and one or two outdoor.
So, Stormy, do you want to know whether he should continue to do all of those, or
I mean, that's a
that's a
that's a
big,
coaching
yeah.
decision, and
So what we've been doing, my assistant coach here, Coach Campbell, is on the call as well. We have, and he's sprints focused. So I'm more the distance end of it. He's more sprints jump focused. So we have been doing this combination of training where I take him for a couple of days. We get a little bit of volume done. And then Coach Campbell takes him and does some speed work and some approaches as far as high jump goes. And on those days, I'll have him do some easy mileage. We're just trying to piece it together. We're a very small roster, so we need the points in everything that he can give us possible. So really what I have put together and I think is going to work for him is him covering the 800, the 500, because our conference does, yep, compete at the
yep,
500, and the 4x4 and high jump.
yeah,
Well, keep us posted on how that works because that'll be interesting combination.
It is such a
that is a very
considering
interesting
prelims and
combination.
finals, and yes, it's a lot.
Yeah, yeah, we'll see.
I think
Vic, did
Al.
your coach come on yet, Reggie?
Yeah, Houston, can you hear me?
I catch you, man. How are you?
Man, that's good. That's good. Look. I got an email from Coach Schmidt. I took care of that information that you sent me that I needed to do. Get all of that information in. Even though we are more so short sprint, I know that's your not kind of not like your forte, but just because we don't run indoor and we're going to outdoor and we're going to do testing in about 3 weeks once our kids get back, just to make sure that we get them to our JUCO standards and just just some tips. And don't get me wrong, I got coach information. He texts me, however, but I want to make sure that I have the best thing that I need for my kids.
Gotcha. So what exactly is your question?
My question is, um, early spring, short sprint and short and mid sprint workouts that we need and things that we need to concentrate on.
Well, I'm definitely not a short sprint expert, but I, by any stretch of the imagination, but I can tell you this: even my mid distance people, like we sprint at least once every 2 weeks. And when I say sprint, like we're doing max velocity work. Flies, it eventually goes to in and outs and that kind of stuff. And we're pretty much there's that aspect of it year round.
Okay. Because I mean, as far as the workout process, I know you to run fast, you got to sprint fast. I don't care what time of the year that it is, but those are the things that you do that need to keep the fast twitch going. Um, it's just, it's millions and millions and millions of things that's out there that suggest that you do that to get your athletes in peak condition in in May or when competition and final seasons are. But however, just to make sure that we don't burn them up and also to make sure that we have the right things that what they need to do.
Amen.
Yeah, definitely. Great. Al, you got a comment?
Scott needs to say something, but one of the things that Houston worked with Michaela, and I don't want to speak for him, but he did the reason the aerobic worked was VO2 max, and of course that involves threshold plus the cardiac output is max VO2, and her third 200 is where she really tore everybody up. And Scott, you need to explain to them that that's where the aerobic max VO2 aerobic becomes the comfort zone that they can use if they're fit enough to be ready to run the last 200 as fast as they ran the first 400. correct, Scott?
Yeah. The the race model, um, the race model for the 800 is normally a little quicker first 400 as compared to the second 400. And um, by the time you get into your third 200, your anaerobic system has kind of reached the end of where it's really effective. Most of you figured out in just the general sciences that glycolysis lasts up to about 90 seconds. So when you get out around 60, 65 seconds, you're getting near the end of it. And that's when the aerobic system um, becomes a bigger player. And so the person with the more robust aerobic system is going to be able to handle at least the second part of that third 200 and for sure the last 200 better. Because by the time you get out there, um, by the time you get out to your fourth 200, it may seem like you're still anaerobic, but you're mostly aerobic at that point.
Wasn't this where Brooks was saying, the critical zone was that third 200 and being effective in that?
Yeah, the critical zone really, I think in the 800, and I've talked to Brooks about this many times, is it's in the middle of the race. It's like from 200 to 600 would be really the critical zone for the 800, which so it's kind of like the race is kind of weird set up that way as compared to all other distance races where it's always at the end. This just shifted a little bit um, earlier into the race.
Interesting.
So I agree with Scott 100% on that too. That's kind of been our approach to the 800. I had a girl that led the NCAA, although she didn't win NCAA, she ran bad in the finals, named Katie Ann McDonald that I had right before Michaela, and she ended up running too flat when her last year. But the goal was we were trying to break 2 minutes, and the whole focus race model wise was you have to run 60 flat the middle 400. And I don't care what the first 200 is, and I almost don't care what the last 200 is. Run the middle in 60 seconds.
Yep.
And the first time Michaela broke 2 minutes, she ran the middle 400 in 59.8.
Now
I tell you,
that's very interesting because I have never heard that before, but then I haven't, followed a lot with the distance. Is that a new philosophy or is that pretty much standard?
It's one that I've had for quite a while, and I may have gotten it from Scott. I don't know, but that's always kind of been my approach to the 800 is you have to run the middle fast. You're not going to make it up in the last 200, not from a time standpoint. Now, if it's tactical, that's different, and everybody's going to get out. You have to run the middle hard.
I tell you what, Houston, let me ask you this. Let me ask you this. Even if we break down that last 400 that you're mentioning, if we break it down to increments to that last 200s, and by that part, the third 200, and we're dealing with a whole lot of lactic acid manipulation. Or okay, I
Yep.
get that. I get that. So, are there any workouts that can help us because the third 200 lactic acid, man, you tight and you trying to carry an airplane to get to the last 200. Are there any type of workouts because you still have 400 meters left? You still have 400 meters left, but to make sure even the workout increments because the back end of the 800 not so much the 400, but definitely the 800 is that's what we're concentrating on that you don't die and that you
So,
can finish with the speed endurance just to come and finish the event.
well, you certainly have to have the buffering capacity at the end of the race for sure, but the more aerobically fit you are, the more you're going to not have this huge onset of lactic acid as much, or you're going to deal with it better. So you have to be aerobically fit to run the middle that way. You can't just rely on the anaerobic system the whole way on the 800. If you break it down, you're talking about a race that's roughly 50-50. And I think one of the plays, and I don't mean this as an offense to any sprint coach out there, but I think one of the mistakes the sprint coaches make looking at the 800 and some distance coaches too is they think just going to run 3 mile morning runs checks the aerobic box, and it does not. It's part of it, sure. I mean, it helps your general fitness, but you've got to do high level, intense intervals at around 3K, 5K, 1500-meter type pace to build that kind of aerobic power. I mean, do you want to be aerobically efficient and do good long runs and threshold stuff? Absolutely. And the more you do of that, build your work capacity for doing that higher level aerobic stuff for sure. But that's probably the problems you're running into in the middle of the 800, where kids are dying from 400 to 600 instead of dying between 600 and 800.
I got you.
You're just not pushed. You're just not getting far enough. I like to use the word clean. You're not getting into the race clean enough to where you can even use your speed.
I got you.
What are some sample workouts you would use, let's say early season and late season, to help with this middle 400?
So, well, I don't know that I'd ever do a workout that's for a specific part of the race per se, because everything is important. But when you're talking about like we do, once we're into the middle of the season, we're doing some kind of VO2 workout once every 14 days at least. And really touching on it at least once a week. But our big workout with the women, we try to get to where every female on the team can get to where they can do 6 by 1,000 at we kind of start around what their perceived 5K pace would be down to 3K pace. Like for Michaela, for example, we'll start around 307 or 310, somewhere in there. And by the end, she'll run the last couple under 3 minutes. Now, can she run 15-20? Probably not. But she can do a workout that a 15-20 person can do if it's broken out into 800s or thousands or something like that, if that makes sense. But early on, we may have to start with 400s or 600s. But my biggest thing is I am going to get, when we do VO2 work, we are going to get at least 5 and almost always 6,000 meters of volume in that session. Now, we may have to break it down into small increments at the end where we're doing 400s, but we are going to get 6,000 meters of volume in. And ideally, I would like to get it to where it's in 3 to 4 minute segments where it's like thousands or 1,200s or something like that.
I tell you what, Houston, when you say that you're going to do it early and you're going to get that much volume in, let's just say fall and base time, even if we have to do 4 600s, the distance and the recovery, what do you speak of at that time?
So when we do VO2 stuff, we're usually taking equal rest. So if we're doing thousands, we're taking 3 minutes rest. If we're doing 800s, it's 2.5. If we're doing 600s and they're doing them in 2 minutes, it'd be 2 minutes. If we're doing 400s, it might be 75 seconds.
Now, VJ put a note in the chat that's, I think, kind of fitting with this. VJ, is this answering what you would
put? He's pretty much talking about it right now. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I've got a chart that I use that I tweak every year that I have, and I use percentages of VO2 for my pacings. And if you look at Jack Daniels or the Macmillan calculator, they're all pretty close to the same type stuff. It's all based on aerobic capacity. I've got certain percentages I like to use. Al's probably got a little bit different. Scott's probably got a little different. Everybody on here may have a little different percentage they use, but it's pretty ballpark, same concept. I like doing workouts where we're usually finishing a little better at the end, so we kind of negative split things a lot. But so when we do VO2 stuff, we usually kind of at least I instructionally tell them we're starting at 5K pace, working our way to 3K pace. But usually they start a little faster than that anyway. But I think the big mistake a lot of people make is they don't do the volume of the VO2. They do 3 times 1,000 because this person comes from the 4.8 side of things and they can't do that much volume. They may not can do that much volume of 1200s, but they can probably do that much volume of 400s or 600s. And maybe it's a couple of thousands, and then it's a couple of eights, and then it's a couple sixes, and then it's some fours to get it. But I'm just telling you, I'm getting my volume out of you on those days.
Okay, make a lot of sense.
DeAndre, you want to jump in here too with your questions? DeAndre?
But I will say, I mean, that it's a progression to get to there for sure. It is, and it's sometimes some of those workouts are ugly in the beginning, but once they can get them, then it's game changing.
DeAndre, go
Hi,
ahead.
I'm here. Thank you, Coach. And thanks, Coach, for being on with us today. My question is, what are some of your indicator workouts as you're preparing them for indoor season, outdoor season, nationals, regionals, or first rounds, conference championships? And then also, how do you plan to progress them to be successful for indicators and for those championships?
For you got a specific race
For
specifically, you're talking
800.
for 800. One of the workouts I really like doing, and so let me back up. So especially on the women's side, often in cross country, your middle distance runners can be really good cross country runners. For 5K, 6K, a lot of those girls can stretch out. Sometimes they may not can stretch out great that far. So all of our middle distance runners, at least that I've had, all run cross country. Some are good, some are great, some are maybe okay. But now on the men's side, it's a little bit different because somebody like your 800-meter guys stretching out to 8K, 10K is a whole different conversation. But when we're in cross country season, those middle distance runners they're not doing exactly the same thing every single day that the distance run, that like the 5K, 10K, more traditional cross country types are doing. Like occasionally I'll put them on the track and we'll do 10 times 400 at 1,500-meter pace. That's what makes those athletes really good. That's what makes them tick. That's the kind of athlete they are. So I don't know if Al remembers this, but we went to nationals in the first year we went to nationals at Mississippi State. We were predominantly, we had 3 really, really high level 1,500-meter. 2 of them ended up winning nationals eventually, and another one was an All-American a couple times. And we go to nationals the one year. The next year we've got this bomb squad of a team coming back. And in my mind, we start doing more threshold, more stuff with everybody. And all of a sudden we get about a third of the way through the cross country season, and the 5K, 10K steeple group, they've all gotten a lot better, and they're kind of leading the team. And these 1,500-meter girls that I've made more, even done more cross country work with, and gotten away from, they weren't running terrible, but they weren't running near as good as they were the year before. And we kind of sat back and goes, you know what? Let's get on the track with them, and we'll go do the threshold runs and the tempo runs with them. And once a week, let's get them on the track and just do something quick, not high level 800-meter work, but 400s at 1,500-meter pace and some quicker threes. And all of a sudden, these girls start running great again. And we ended up having the best cross country season we'd ever had at that point. But my point to that is with those middle distance kids, speed is never out of the equation, even during cross country season. And even every other Monday, we're sprinting. Whether it's in the form of, even during the summer, whether, in the summer, we're not maybe doing fly work as much as we're doing very short hill sprints, but there's some kind of hard velocity involved. Now, as far as indicator workouts go, one of the things we do, I think that I don't know that I do a ton of indicator workouts. But if you said, hey, you need to know what somebody's going to run, I'd probably go do a really hard 600 would be my indicator workout. Some of the workouts that I like to do pretty often that give me a good kind of sense of where somebody is. In the 800, we'll do one of the workouts I like doing, and we'll do this. We haven't done it yet. We'll probably do it for the first time towards the end of January, but we'll do 2 500s. I have gone as many as 3 500s, but usually it's 2 500s with 5 minutes rest. Then we'll take a bigger rest, like 8 to 10 minutes, and we will do 5 300s at goal 800-meter pace. When they can complete that workout, I feel like they're pretty close to being able to do it. If the last few threes are significantly slower, then we're probably not quite ready yet.
Does that answer okay, DeAndre, or you have anything further?
No, that the answer is great. Thank you so much.
Great, great. David, Mr. Coach of the Year, what's up?
Um, I have a couple questions. Thanks, Coach, for being on and sharing with us tonight. Are you aware of a statistic? It's relating to global championships in particular, that the position you're at 600 is kind of the position you will finish in at the end of the race related to the 800 meters.
I've seen a little bit of data on that. Yes.
Do you remember kind of, because I just thought about it off the top of my head because with Michaela, she is a front runner, right? She's not somebody that sits and runs off
Yep.
somebody else. Um, Coming in and when you started coaching her, did you kind of dive into her race strategy and just kind of supporting that? And can you kind of give some insight on that?
So sure. So she does feel comfortable leading. That's always been her way. Even if you go back and look when she's racing at 11 years old at AAU, she likes to be in the front. That's number one. Number two, though, the problem wasn't all our goal wasn't always just to lead. The problem was at the NCAA is she likes to run fast. She wants to go run under 2 minutes every time, and nobody else will go out faster than 60. So it just got to be like, hey, we're going to go run fast. And if there was actually at one of the SEC meets indoor, Britton Wilson ran the 800 versus the 400, and they ran really fast. But Britton led her through 500, and it was great. It was great. The problem is in the college races, she just hasn't gotten. Even when we've gone to Boston the last few years, we've really asked for a rabbit, and every time we've been told we don't have anybody that can run 58 even. So I'm like, well, just we'll do it ourselves then. That's kind of been the mentality. There's other people that can do it. It's just the problem is the few times we've tried to not lead in these college races, a lot of the times it ends up because nobody's wanting to lead. It ends up going out in 61,
Yeah.
and it just becomes tactical. So it's something she needs to get more comfortable with, and we've talked about that because she's not comfortable in the packs, and that's something she's got to get better at. But she likes to run fast, and I don't like tactical racing. So most of the time, we've just said, you know what, go run 158 or 159, and if you get beat, then shake somebody's hand, but don't get beat at 201. Don't get beat at 202.
Have you ever, with teaching the athletes that you train to navigate rounds, like what's your, I guess, tactic with her, for instance? It's okay, she's gonna go out there and run fast, but like okay, let's set up a two flat race, and is that acceptable
So
because of energy expenditure and things like that?
well, so I this is where and this might be a good conversation, and I'd like to have a lot of people's opinion on this, but I am of the belief, especially in the 800, that it is easier, like say in the prelims, it is easier for her, and let's just say we're trying to come through and 128 and run 30. So we'll to run 158. It is easier for her to come through in 128 at 600, and if nobody's with her, just cruise home and stay relaxed, than it is to come through in 131 or 132 and have to dig down to her toenails the last 200 and run as hard as she absolutely can. In the scenario where she runs through in 129 or 128 and then can kind of just shut down, I think that actually saves more energy than running 131 and sprinting your guts out the last 200. Number two, now it's changing again this year, but in the past few years, the format at the NCAA meet has been women run on Thursday, they get 48 hours off, and then they come back on Saturday. Now, indoors is different, but outdoors, that's not real hard to recover from running 2 hard 800s. Now, and I don't think she's ever run a prelim where she ran all out, but she doesn't play around in the prelims too much.
My last question for you is, with Michaela, running 4x4s has, I think, been a big part of her success. Just continue to have
For sure
that speed endurance. How will you incorporate that going forward now that she's a professional?
Yeah, so we've actually discussed this a little bit, and especially indoors, we've always done a decent amount of workouts after races indoors. And a lot of the times we do, if it's a shorter race, then we might go outside a few minutes later and do some threshold reps or something a little longer. But we've even done this last year a few times when we didn't have a 4x4 all the time last year. We had we didn't have a lot of depth at that, and a couple of them were banged up indoors. And like if I wanted her to run a 4x4, I actually got this from Kiva Talbert. We would go outside if like at our home meets, for example, because our outdoor track's right there, and we would do 3 times 133 with 60 seconds rest as hard as we could to kind of simulate a 400. But it's something we're going to have to do in practice probably a little bit more than we've done previously, because I agree with you. I think all of those 4x4s were really big for her development. And as a pro, every now and then you can go to a meet and get lucky and get four unattached people that want to throw one together, and we'll do that. But at most of the meets, you're not going to be able to do that. And it is something that is a big part of training that we don't have anymore.
Yeah. Anything else right now, David?
Well, no, thank you.
Okay, Stormy.
Sorry, trying to find the mute button there. Have another question. So, how have you handled? I have a 1,500-meter runner right now. He's a 346 guy. IT band syndrome has taken us out right now for this period here, and so we're trying to kind of stay the course as best we can. What do you typically do in those cases where you have something that's nagging like IT band syndrome?
One of my better girls is kind of dealing with that a little bit right now. That's one that's kind of a sometimes not the most painful thing all the time, but it's sometimes hard to get completely rid of. I will tell you this: the one thing that we've had really good luck with here. Now we've got a fantastic medical team, and we're able to do a lot of things. But if you have the option of stem cell injection, you might ask a doctor about that. We've had really good luck with that. Now it's a couple of to be a couple. It's the last one we did, she was not able to run for about a week, so she could still cross train, but then after that it was gone, and it had lingered for a couple of months. We had one of those that we did in the fall, but the last 2 that we've had, we had really good luck with that.
If you don't have the access to some of that, do you have
So the other thing that from a treatment standpoint, we've had good luck with Grastons on it. Our trainers do that a lot. They've done a little bit of the needling. We've had mixed bag of like doing a whole lot of foam rolling. Some people that's done done really well, and some people it seems like it's made it a little worse when we've done a lot of that.
Yeah, he's on the end that the foam rolling, to me, it appears has made it worse. So it's been lingering now for probably 4 weeks, I would say.
Are you on the track a lot?
Um, we weren't on the track that much, 2 days a
Okay.
week.
The is it his? Do you know if it's his left or his right side?
It is the right side.
Okay. You
Right, Coach Campbell, is it the right side? I think it's the right side, I'm pretty sure.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
okay? So I'm just asking because in the South, it's a little bit different, but we have really high pitched roads and you always run against traffic. So most of the time, it's the kids have it on their left side because they're running with their left foot slightly lower than the right foot if they're running a lot on the roads. We something we kind of constantly are like, hey, if there's not cars coming, switch sides of the roads occasionally, or run on the sidewalks, or actually, even though it may be a little firmer or a little harder, it's flatter.
That might actually be his problem though, because when he does go out on his long or easy runs, he's doing going opposite of traffic. So he's more of a right guy. So that makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
There you
Okay.
go.
Coach
Great.
Charles,
Hey, Sue, Coach
uh,
Coach Al had a question.
Okay, but Coach, hang on a minute, because if you'll raise your hand, that way I can call kind of in order if it's okay. Matt, you've got a comment, and then Javon.
Yeah, I'm curious when you think about setting up like somebody who can do like 4, 8, 15, when you set up a whole season, how do you think about like scheduling out like what they're gonna do throughout the season? Like obviously they're gonna do different stuff at different points, but like setting up a long plan for season workouts or
So,
more the races.
one of the things that I do when at the beginning of every season, like I've already done it all the way through outdoor track, um, is I go through and I've got my calendar out and I'll go through and I don't put the actual workouts, but I'll put the concepts of the workouts I want to do. Okay, this is a threshold day, this is a lactate tolerance day, whatever it may be. And then I will list every kid on one side and every meet, and I will go through and I will script out who's going to run what at what meet. Now, does that change? Oh, absolutely. And what I have planned right now for April for most people will change as well. I mean, it changes because somebody, you know, because the thing you've got to think about is like you always are thinking like, oh, by the time we get to this point in the season, we want our lactate threshold to be at this point. I'm just using that as one example. What if it doesn't get there? What if that development didn't go as well as you want? Are you going to stick with it longer, or do you go ahead and go to the next phase of training? And that's a little bit of a maybe the art of it a little bit of, but I go through before the season ever starts. I already know, at least in my mind, if everything went smooth, no injuries, no setbacks, everybody hits the qualifying time that you're chasing at this certain meet. I could do my entries for the whole year, but there again, I may have an athlete that okay, we're gonna go to at the Arkansas Razorback meet. We're gonna try to get our whether it's conference qualifying time or even national qualifying time in the mile, and then we'll run the 3K at Boston, for example. Well, what happens if you don't get it at Razorback? Well, now we've got to maybe change what we're doing in Boston. Maybe we're going to go do another mile. But at the beginning of the year, like I already have that scripted out how I would like it to go.
Do you tend to lean short to long or long to short or anything in particular?
I think typically race wise, we will race above and below distances before we run our main event a lot. Like, and like, if we want to keep using Michaela as an example, or like usually her first race indoors, or sometimes even her first two races, would be the mile and the 4x4.
Thanks.
Javon. You're on mute.
Thank you.
There you
That's
go.
that's funny because usually in high school the 4x4 is last in track and the mile is like first right after the 4x1. So it's funny how that works.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you. Coach Frank. So my question, I coach high school, and I'm not sure that I would coach college. It just seems like the standards are really high, and it's really a lot to do.
It's not the current culture is not quite as fun as it used to be. I'll not lie to you about that.
Hmm. I wanted to ask you on, especially since you mentioned your athletes, you're 14 and you're 7, how they kind of sometimes meet at different times, and you uniquely have different workouts for different people. For track, we have a little over 200. I'm in San Diego at Olympian High School. I'm curious, what do you do to help build the team dynamic, especially when you're a newer coach? I just became a head varsity coach, so I'm new. I'm going in for my second season. I was an assistant for 5 years, but at a different high school. So I'm kind of curious as to what you do to to build people to be close together, especially when you said some people practice at different times.
Well, and that is a trick. And that's probably harder at the high school level, maybe if you're
Mm.
practicing at different times than in college. We do practice at different times. Like getting that culture in my event group, I don't think it's very hard.
Mm.
Getting that incorporated with the rest of the team, you've got to work really hard at it because
Exactly.
they're not
Mm.
at the same time. Like we practice at 7 o'clock year round in the morning year round. That just what's works with. I've got a lot of engineers. There's a lot of afternoon classes here. We can't get people at the same time. The 3 years ago, I was trying to go in the afternoons during the spring, and I literally had to have 6 different practice times. And I had like a couple of really good guys that were in the same event group, and they got to practice together on Saturdays only.
Mm.
And they were both really good guys, and it just did a disservice to them that they never got to practice together hardly.
Mm.
So I just went to 7 a.m. year round. Obviously, in the fall here, we have to go at 7 a.m. to beat the heat. We don't have much option. We could go earlier, but that's about as late as you can go. Um, but it is hard. Like our sprint group has a great dynamic, and the sprints jumps has a good dynamic together. They don't practice together, but they're at the track the same time. They're kind of in the weight room at the same time, and we're at a completely different time. In
Mm.
the fall, it's especially with the new people, they don't know each other as well. We try to plan some activities. We do like for us, we do team tailgates for all the home football
Mm.
games, and we have activities we do, and it's it it's trying. I think one thing that does help here, I think it helped at Mississippi State. I think it definitely helped at Southwest Missouri State. Is the coaches were all pretty close with each other.
Mm.
So I think when they see the coaches that are close to each other, and like I try to go out of my way to know everybody's name by the second week of school. And like even though I don't have practice in the afternoons, I may walk through and I may walk over to the throws area and say hi to everybody and watch them for a few minutes just because I like doing that. But Coach Andy Kay, our throws coach, and I are really good friends. So I go down there and I'll, cut up with him while he's coaching a little bit, and we'll watch and
Mm.
talk. So I think when the athletes get to know all the coaches, that sometimes bridges the gap. It
Mm.
does help when you have an athlete that maybe a distance coach athlete that runs the 4x4, or maybe you have an 800-meter runner that is a high jumper that kind of maybe goes from group to group a little bit more and can kind of bridge that gap a little bit. But it's a hard thing to get done. We've had years when I was at Mississippi State, we had years where the team was really close in all the event groups, and we had years where it's almost like we had 4 separate teams. And the same
Mm.
here. We've been real unified
Mm.
at times, and at times we had a throws team, a jumps team, a distance team, and a sprint team, and we got on the bus, and sometimes you felt like people didn't know each other's names.
Mm. Yeah.
I do think in college, it's a little easier because the kids are at least living in the dorms together. They're eating in the same cafe.
Right,
And if
right.
you talk about it like, hey guys, you need to know everybody's name. So you
Mm.
need to know everybody on your team. Then most of them want that. They really do. It's just getting them to break the ice to go do it.
Yeah, maybe some team building or type things for high school, because I work with high school and that's,
Mm.
very common. Or like
Mm.
Coach says, doing some kind of a off the track activity whether it be football, basketball, a different sport, and getting together, spirit group, something like that.
Yeah.
So, Reggie, you've got another question?
Thank you.
Yes, yes, I do. It's and just I guess because of the former question, um, as far as what Coach Franks, even in I think it was 95, 94, when I coached against Coach Franks and he killed one of my distance runners, and by me even being a Mississippi State alumni, and Coach Schmidt is still on the line,
Mhm.
and we speak of that congruency and athletes knowing each other, and I get it, I get it. It's different. It's different, and even having an opportunity to coach at Kahoma Community College, dealing with the younger athletes, not and they speak of good or bad or indifferent. Um, it is what it is. It is what it is. Not necessarily because our assistant coach, Coach Victor Montgomery, who's over the Southern District USA Track and Field, is on the line right now. He can speak to that as well. It's just different. It's just different. But my question is, as I'm leading up to this, transfer portal. I know football, that's a big thing in the millions and hundreds of thousands of dollars today, especially with a established program like LSU. How much dictation does that have with your ingoing and outgoing athletes?
If you ask different coaches on our staff, you might get a different answer. Because some really like the portal, and I'll be honest with you, I have not taken very many portal people. The I've had a couple of grad students. They worked out really well. They were great. Um, I have had two that I recruited, and they went to another SEC school, two different ones. Did not have a good experience. Called me, and I knew who they were, and both of them I was kind of heartbroken I didn't get the first time, so I was glad to have them the second time. But I think, and listen, I recruit the portal, but every person that goes in the portal, in my opinion, you have to do some homework as to why they're in the portal. And there's some really good reasons that are very valid, but there are some reasons that might not be good for your culture. And when you take, I think that I'm not even against the portal in and of itself. I am definitely against the number of people that just get in there for, because they think the grass is always greener on the other side. I would love to see somebody do some statistical analysis of improvement rates of people that got in the portal. I think it would be an interesting outcome on average. But, you know, again, I think there's also this misnomer that in the portal, there's all these great athletes. And there are certainly in track, there's a few, but you're not going to see many athletes in the portal outside of maybe some grad students that were NCAA scorers that entered the portal. Those athletes are really happy. They're doing great. They're staying where they're at. It's the people that didn't score at the conference meet that think they should have that are getting in the portal sometimes. And sometimes that's not the answer you're looking for.
Yeah, I get it. I get it. And it's a different dynamic. It's a different dynamic. I get it.
But
2000.
well, let me say one other thing. But to answer your question, I think you said like now we're under these different roster management rules where we have limits and stuff. When we started this year, by the SEC, we were limited to 35 people on the roster. We were and 45 on the women. We were instructed by our head coach, and our staff was in agreement with it that hey, we probably, especially now the men, I think we were at 34, so we could leave room to pick one person up mid year. But on the women's side, we were like, hey, we need to be down at 42 or 43. So we have some wiggle room. If somebody really good enters the portal, or two, there's maybe a junior college kid coming out in January, or we find an international that could come in and make our team better. Because if you stack it in August with 45 people, then you have no wiggle room come January.
That means you're stuck.
Yep. So it's a tough decision.
Yeah, the portal could be a whole different topic, definitely on this. Matt, you have a follow-up?
Yeah, I guess somewhat related, like with the portal, do you have suggestions for high school coaches? Because it's brutal right now. And so just like, with trying to help our kids as best we can, like I've had coaches tell me, well, your high school, rising senior, they can't currently score in the SEC. And I'm like, there's maybe four kids in the whole country in
So
any event who can score in the SEC right now.
that
Like, what
that
are you
is
talking about?
correct. And that is I have had that conversation with the person that signs my checks and sits at the end of the hall a little bit about that. Like, and there that's the danger we're getting in, is we're getting away from development,
Exactly.
and we're trying to get ready-made stuff out of the portal.
That's 100%. In fact, that was a question before we got going as to what is there, you had mentioned about individual development, and yet with the way the NC2A is going now, it doesn't seem like they're even considering, or the format is not conducive to development of athletes. It's like, let's find a ready-made, like you say, a ready-made athlete. And as a result, a lot of kids are losing out, definitely. I
A
mean,
hundred percent, it's I had this conversation. We had as a staff, we had these conversations. We're in a staff meeting, and we're kind of saying, well, now the walk on kid is that's not as valuable anymore. We need full ride kids. Well, my point was, like, we can say that, but if we look at year before last, we won the outdoor championship by 6 points. No, sorry, we won by 3 points. I had two walk-on distance girls that scored 6 points, and we won by 3.
wow.
If we hadn't have had them, we wouldn't have. So my point to the staff was like, you guys can say we don't want any walk-ons, or we don't want that we shouldn't spend too much time on that. And I get that. That's not going to win NCAAs probably, but I liked my bonus. I don't, did you guys? So developing those kids is still really important. Now, is the dynamic changing and you can't keep as many of those? It is. It is. And I look at our cross country team that made it this year. Our little girl that was our number 4 runner, I don't know that I could recruit her now. And listen, she's run 32:40 on the track. She was a 10:48 Louisiana girl. She's gotten so much better over the 4 years. But I don't know that I could have recruited her now.
And the
And it's
sad thing
it
is, with
saddens me.
the junior college, from what I learned at the coaches convention, the junior college is getting to this high level also, and the qualifying standards even for walk-ons at JCs is becoming as elitist almost as the Division 1, Division 2. So, to say that the JCs would be an intermediate step is not even reality anymore in many cases. And so this is definitely a problem, which we're not going to solve right now, definitely with that. But Houston, in closing here tonight, we've gone through a lot of different topics, and it's been excellent. What would be some closing comments you'd have for our coaches that are both high school and JC and college of Division 1, Division 2?
My biggest thing is stick to the plan. Make the plan for the year. And do you have to tweak it along the way? Sure, but stick to the plan. Your wholesale changes, you make those at the end of the year for the next year. But come up with a good logical plan. in my opinion, should be scientifically based on, getting the adaptations you want at the right time of year, but make that plan and stick with that plan for the year. Sometimes that plan you think is going to work real quick may take a little bit longer to cook than you thought, but most of the time, making big wholesale changes in the middle doesn't pan out real well.
Very, very true. Excellent advice. Al, you want to run the anchor leg here?
There's one thing that I wanted to talk about a little bit at 800 meters. We have Marco Arop here. And after Houston worked with him first when he won the Pan Am Games. But then Chris Woods, took over as the head coach after a bit of a controversy, and he had turned pro and was running, and he'd be leading till about the last 10, 15 meters, and then his mechanics would go down. Well, when I gave the talk last year about the spinal column and the fascia in each muscle group that determined extension and rate of a muscle, whether it's concentric or eccentric contractions. His problem was that he wasn't doing, when he was doing speed work, not 60s, but 200 or 300 meters or maybe 150s, he wasn't doing enough volume. And what happened, Sidney McLaughlin had come up with a statement at the standing in front of NBC Mike, was that if you notice after hurdle 9 and she goes to 10 to the finish, they asked her what was the hardest part of the race, and that was it, because she was having to concentrate on her mechanics. And that was because her prime muscle fibers were acidically getting problem. And this was Marco Arop's problem. He wasn't doing, when he was doing fast stuff, say those 500s that Houston would do, he needed to do 3, so that on the last one, he had to change to secondary and recruit different muscle fibers that had not been there in practice. So the one thing that Sydney related to was that her practices were hard enough that it could simulate at the end that you needed to be able to recruit different muscle fibers, especially at 800 meters. And when I told that to Coach Woods, he increased that set part of that particular session, whatever it was that was oriented towards speed and special endurance, as Scott would say, whether he's doing 400-meter repeats or whatever it was, is that at the end of the session, whatever volume you were doing, intensity is the most important part, the speed, but they may have to go to secondary muscle fibers to recruit. So don't forget, when you're coaching at 800 meters, you have to do something that they hold their form to the end and hold off that last 5 meters that you may be getting. And after he did that, he ran 141, and he continues to run 141 when he has to. So I think that was the difference. So that I just want to throw that in for 800 meters.
Okay, great point. Great point. Well, Houston, thank you again so much. I really enjoyed it and learned a few new things here, definitely.
I
And
appreciate it.
appreciate your time tonight and everybody else. And hopefully, we'll see you all next week. Have a great week.
Okay.
Thank you.